Hey everybody, my name is Nick. I'm a director and editor traveling, vacationing in Bali right now. And today I'm going to be talking about a film called Sundel Bolong, which is translated to Ghost with a Hole. Ghost with a Hole is a classic Indonesian horror film about a prostitute who is played by the Indonesian actress who is quite famous named Suzanna. This prostitute goes straight. She marries a very nice man. They move into a house together, but that man is always away on business. While he's away on business, she wants to get another job. So she goes to try to find modeling work, as she is quite beautiful. When she goes into the modeling agency, she realizes that the head of the agency knows her former mama-san, whom she calls Mami, who managed her when she was a prostitute. Mami comes up with a plan to try to use the idea of her being a model to get her back as a prostitute because she was one of her best. The modeling agent named Rudy coerces her, tries to get her to be exchanging sex for modeling jobs, which Suzanna, who is in this film is named Alyssa, turns down. Rudy, he kind of tricks her and then ends up raping her along with a lot of his friends, which is pretty disturbing. Although most of it isn't shown, as it's a movie from 1981, I believe. Later, they go to trial, and Mami and Rudy get off. Ostensibly, they're not going to be convicted for this crime. Societally, Alyssa is put under a lot of pressure because she gets pregnant from this rape. She becomes so worried about what will happen when her husband comes back that she ends up taking her life. As a ghost, a Sundel Bolong, which in Indonesia is a ghost that is specifically a woman with long black hair. Usually a prostitute. Bolong is a hole, so they have a big hole in their back. In Indonesia, they have a lot of different ghost types, and this is one of the types of ghosts. She comes back as this ghost and ends up getting revenge on all of the people that raped her and ruined her life. To be honest, the story structure of this movie is pretty odd and a little bit confusing. There's a lot of kind of twists and turns to the story, like it goes back and forth in ways that it doesn't really need to. I think it could be pretty straightforward. The setup of the film, prostitute gets coerced, ends up being killed, and then comes back and takes revenge on the people that messed with her, could be real quick. You know, you could set that up pretty quickly, but in this movie it's pretty drawn out, and then it ends up going back and forth between stuff when she's killing the people that could be the meat of the movie, but it's really not in this film. It's pretty short, and that is when the movie is its best, when the Sundel Bolong is going all around messing with people and scaring them and killing all of the people getting revenge. That's the best part of the movie, but it's unfortunately maybe 30-20% of it. There's a lot of filler. And I think it's just, the story is structured weird. And when I was watching it, I got confused a lot of the times. Like the trial thing ended up not being really sure what was going on with the trial. Like I thought the trial was over and then it came back and wasn't. I just think it could have been structured way better. And revenge on different people that hurt her is a perfect, very simple structure for the film. And it just kind of screwed it up a little bit. I think a lot of that had to do with the editing of the movie. The scenes are edited in a strange order. There's way too much space in a lot of these scenes. Like scenes just kind of drag and there's a lot of space and deadness that could be cut. When you're watching it, I think look out for that. Look at how the scene kind of just sits there with people talking about whatever. I mean, there's a lot of unnecessary scenes in this. So much filler that could totally just be chopped. Another thing that I think messes with the movie a little bit is they don't establish the characters of the villains individually. I think all of the characters that rape her could have been established as like bad guy 1, bad guy 2, bad guy 3, progressively like the worst up till Rudy, who's the only one who's really established. So as the Sundel Bolong is going around and getting revenge on these people, it's kind of unclear about who's who. I actually thought Rudy was killed in the very beginning, and then I realized, oh no, he's still alive. I think that they establish who these different people are. As she goes and get revenge on them, you'll be more excited to follow that story along and be like, oh, she's killing this guy. Now she's going to go up and move up to the big bad guy, which is the best kind of structure for this. And it's just hard to care when you don't know who's who and who she's getting revenge on. I will say that a lot of the kills and a lot of the things that happen ghost related with the Sundelbolong, those are the best parts of the movie. Those are really fun. There's some really amazing kills, like a lady gets thrown onto power lines and electrocuted. A guy gets impaled on her tombstone. You know, there's a lot of fun, very campy, very cool, different classic horror movie kind of stuff that is really fun. And the way the ghost face becomes like a skeleton. I mean, it's cheesy as all hell. The makeup isn't like that amazing, but it's just fun and cool. And if that was 70% of the movie, this would be a great movie. It just needed more of the camp and the goofiness. They do something pretty funny, like they speed up the film stock when people are like freaking out with the ghost, so it gives it like a Abbott and Costello kind of feel, or like Three Stooges. In general, the framing and all the stuff, all of the techniques, you can tell it's like very like low budget movie. If you are like a hardcore horror fan and like seeing a lot of weird, obscure horror films, I think this is definitely one to check out. But it's not like that entertaining of a movie because, like I said, it's very slow. There are cool, interesting things and images and kills and makeup things that they do. The scene where the guy's like in a brick house and the bricks are falling down and the ghost's face is in there is cool to watch. So I think like if you're a director or somebody that's trying to get new ideas for stuff, it's cool to watch kind of these old classic movies that maybe aren't that great, but they have a lot of interesting imagery that you could think like, okay, I could use this idea of like a wall falling down and there's a ghost face behind it, or the floating, or throwing somebody on power lines and then bursting into flames. That stuff is all cool. I think politically, there's kind of an interesting message with this movie, as it's made in Indonesia in the 80s. You know, it's talking about how this woman who was a prostitute then gets kind of tricked back into being a prostitute. She can't get out of that life. I think that's definitely trying to say something about how we don't let women kind of move on from their past. And there's a little bit of stuff about consent in this, because they're saying like, oh, she's a prostitute, so she should just have sex with all of us. That's a really interesting idea and thing that happens. And then once the rape happens to her, the court kind of doesn't believe her because she was a former prostitute. Very interesting sexually political message in this movie that I think is kind of cool from a movie that's so old. The idea that, like, you know, sex workers are people too is an important thing to think about. And I think that's what it's really trying to say, because at the end of the movie, she goes back and she gets revenge on all these people that hurt her. And she kills all of these asshole pimps, which is pretty fun and cathartic thing to watch, because you're definitely rooting for the ghost to go and mess all these guys up and kill them in really gory ways for the thing that they did. The message of this film is a pretty interesting and good one. This kind of movie is like the perfect candidate for a film to be remade, updated. I think you could take a look, like the general story of this, and really update it and make it something that is really fresh and cool. I think in general there's a lot of potential there. It's just in this movie, when you're watching it, it's not that enjoyable and good. Indonesia is apparently very famous for horror, so I am interested to watch a little bit more modern horror stuff. I think this kind of campy old stuff is good to check out if you're really into film or you're really into like campy horror stuff. But I want to check out some Indonesian horror that's like a little bit newer, a little bit more modern take on some of this stuff. Because I think the idea of all these different ghosts, like the Sundel Bolong or other kinds of ghosts, is so interesting. So I'd be curious to see more of these. Let me know in the comments what other horror films I should watch. Send me a recommend. Suzanna herself, too, is pretty famous, and she's made a lot of kind of campy movies like this. If there's a better one than this one that you would like me to check out, let me know in the comments as well. I was thinking of something like Black Magic Woman. I was going to maybe watch that, too. Let me know what you think, what Indonesian movie I should watch next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'm going to go swim in the pool, so I'll see you guys next time.